Deji, is the redeployment of judges considered a punitive measure or an administrative adjustment under Nigerian law? And how does the NJC distinguish between the two?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Well, transfer of judges is not necessarily a punitive measure, but typically it is something. It is an administrative measure to ensure balance in judicial postings and to fill vacancies in jurisdictions where there are needs. And well, in some instances, it might be for disciplinary purposes, perhaps where, for instance, a judicial officer is found to maybe be taking advantage of relationships with persons in a particular jurisdiction. Yes, of course, it could be done. And sometimes, especially in a country like ours, where naturally we would always have resource, and there will be a struggle for resource and posting, a struggle for postings and resources. Some jurisdictions or divisions may be preferred generally over some others. So of course, naturally, you have quite a lot of people who prefer to be posted to Abuja, Lagos, and some other cities. And so yes, it could be used for disciplinary purposes, but mostly it is an administrative issue. But the transfers are sometimes necessary and important. What is worrisome is the manner and timing of the execution of the transfers. Those are the things that require that we should scrutinize the process further.
And at this point, I have to ask, does such redeployment infringe on the principle of judicial independence under sections 6 and 153 of the 1999 Constitution as amended?
You see, ideally, like I have said, since it is an administrative thing and it is sometimes necessary to ensure a balance, it may not necessarily infringe on the principles of judicial independence. But where, for instance, the head of a court is using such measures to either move away uncooperative judges, oh yes, then at that point, one could say there is already an infringement or an attempt to infringe on judicial independence. But again, I think this ordinarily should not be a problem if we had a system where everybody is committed really to the rule of law. And while there may not be any publicly known guidelines for the administration of the transfer of judges, what the NJC should do is to have some sort of unified guidelines or rules and to ensure that those guidelines are adhered to by the heads of court, such that it will become very difficult for any head of court to take advantage or to abuse the powers, the discretion they have to redeploy judges.
Right. And finally, I mean, you said earlier that sometimes it is administrative, and so do judges facing disciplinary sanctions have a right to appeal or seek judicial review of the NJC's recommendations?
The NJC's recommendations for discipline?
Yes. Do they have a right?
Yes.
Judges, when they're facing disciplinary sanctions, do they have a right to appeal or seek, judicial review?
Absolutely. The disciplinary processes of the NJC are administrative processes, and any administrative processes in Nigeria is subject to judicial review. And so any judge who feels aggrieved by the disciplinary measures either initiated or effected by the NJC can, of course, approach a court and apply for judicial review. And up to the Supreme Court, there is nothing that stops the judges from taking such actions. However, if the punitive measures, for instance, are like transfer of judges, like you said, I do not know, especially since there are no publicly known guidelines for the transfer of judges. I do not think any judge will be able to appeal disagree with such postings. However, again, one thing that must be said is that it is important that every stakeholder in the judicial and justice system must understand that all of the actions that are taken by these actors have an impact on public confidence. And where these things are not properly handled, they will frustrate litigants, they will prolong trials, they will deepen the perception that is already in the minds of Nigerians that our justice system is inefficient. And so it is important that all the stakeholders, from the NJC to the heads of court to the judges themselves, and of course, lawyers, do everything that they can to ensure that the processes are seamless, such that cases do not necessarily need to start de novo. I mean, the heads of court can ensure that those judges that they are transferring complete the cases that they have started, not just the ones that they have reserved for judgment, but in fact, those ones that they have part heard are completed before they eventually transmit to their new locations.
Well, I must say, I mean, and finally, I mean, you just talked about the implications as well, but the NJC has said there's nothing to worry about, especially for the judge, Judge Akwo, who was now been suspended and also kept on a watch list. They said all the cases will still be heard and it will go smoothly nonetheless. But what are the legal implications if the NJC sanctions were found to be procedurally flawed in any of those judges' case or not in compliance with fair hearing principles under Section 36 of the Constitution? What could happen?
Well, I think it's clear. Any administrative processes that fails to take cognizance of the principles of fair hearing as enshrined in our Constitution and the two pillars of natural justice, which is that one should not be a judge in his own cause, and that the other party must be properly given an opportunity to be properly heard and to defend himself. Where there is any evidence of non-compliance, the natural implication is that that process itself will be, of course, declared as flawed and, of course, cannot stand. And, well, while I don't know, I would not say some courts may actually require that there should be a fresh procedure. Others may just outrightly just countenance that procedure outrightly. But what is important to know is that they can actually approach the courts and request for a review of the administrative process.
Well, we'll wait to see how all of this will pan out in the coming days. Well, whether it's a cleanup, whether it's administrative duties or much more, only time will tell. I must say thank you so much, Deji, for just taking out the time to join us. Deji Ajire, he's Executive Director for Sterling Center of Law.